People call it sustainability, I call it survival.
What are the main challenges for next oil and gas generation?
There's still a lot of shortage in diesel product in the country. Otherwise, these guys cancel our refining license.
When are you going to finish it?
Tupras is like home to me, you know?
Hello, we are here in St. Petersburg filming with Mr. Ziya Gurun from Tupras.
Okay.
Nice meeting you here, Mr. Ziya.
Well, nice seeing you again, Regina. It's been quite a while since we kind of ran into each other last time. When was it? In Moscow?
It was in Budapest this May, yeah. You are 30 years in the industry, am I right? And you started your career in Tupras, and then you worked in different places, and you get back to Tupras.
Yes.
Okay, why you decided to get back?
Oh, okay. See, oil business is a small community. Okay, everybody knows each other. You know, I work for the government Tupras. I mean, the Turkish Petroleum Refineries Corporation, owned by the state. And I resigned. I kind of worked in different companies, and I kind of returned to the privatized Turkish Petroleum Refineries Corporation. So why did I? Okay, see, the thing is, Tupras is like home to me. You know. They paid they paid for my education in the United States after high school, so it's like home.
Perfect. And could you please tell me what has been changed from
Well,
that time to this time?
Okay, a lot of things. Okay, technology has improved a lot. Especially digital technology has improved a lot. Process control systems, okay. In all technologies that I started working for Tupras, we had the conventional process control items and DCS, distributed control systems, were new in the business. You know, when I returned, of course, all these technologies had been implemented into the process technologies. Of course, better process technologies, catalyst and everything. And also the way the refinery is run. I mean, the management had strict government thinking to more relaxed private thinking. I mean, the attention that people pay to the safety of the refinery operation has improved a lot.
Also, I know that you worked in Star Refinery as well, am I right?
Yes.
And now they are running.
Yes.
It is another refinery which is close to yours, am I right?
Yes.
And what can you say about this? Two refineries in one place.
Okay, first of all, I'll give you some numbers. Okay. See, this refinery is designed and built to make diesel product. Okay, and it was designed also to make zero fuel oil. And this refinery doesn't sell gasoline either. Doesn't produce gasoline. And that refinery was intended to integrate with the next door petrochemical plant that was also owned by SOCAR. So, okay, for that reason, this refinery is not selling any gasoline, so there's no competition in gasoline. And like when you look at the diesel product, for example, Turkey is consuming about 25 million ton diesel per year. And Tupras is able to make, let's say, 11 million ton, 12 million ton, okay? So, and these guys are gonna make about 5-6 million ton. We're still short in diesel, okay? And there will be quite substantial amount of diesel that will be imported into the country. So anyway, the way I see it, yes, there will be some competition, of course, but it's not as severe as a lot of people expect, because there's still a lot of shortage in diesel product in the country. There might be some competition, local competition in the area where both refineries are located, but the rest of the country there will be. I mean, the competition is not going to be that strong. That's my opinion.
In general, market situation, how has it changed in Turkey when another refinery has started?
two aspects, let's say. Okay, one is they bring in additional products to the market. Okay, of course they are trying to sell theirs, and we're trying to sell ours. Fine, but there's also a crisis in Turkey that's also kind of causing the market to shrink. So I don't know which one has a heavier effect on the situation. I mean, to me, crisis is more dominant than the competition. Okay, what happens is yes, our sales numbers kind of went down a little bit, but I don't think it's because of the competition. I think it's also because of the market market shrinkage.
Okay. Another thing is happening right now in your country is that sanctions was made the restriction for you to use Iranian oil. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And
that's what I'm hearing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But we do receive some Iranian home petrol, crude oil, to the extent that we are allowed to process. I think it's a political issue.
Yeah, it's a political issue, but still I'm interested because it should increase your dependence on Russian oil. Am I right?
Yes.
And what do you think about this in general?
Oh, we're happy with the Russian crude oil. And we always got good yields out of Russian crude oil. And of course, we like to process more of Russian crude oil. And technically speaking, we never have any problem processing Russian crude oil, but the quantity of how much of it available for our refineries is the question.
So it could be not enough?
I wouldn't call it not enough. I'm sure the Russian crude oil suppliers have other connections too. I mean, I don't think they are able to sell all their production to us. That's the thing. But as far as I know, like our crude oil diet is about like 20 to 30% right now. Is Russian crude oil.
You know why I'm asking? Because it's you can see on European market that they try to decrease their dependence from Russian crude and gas.
I wonder why.
But from Turkey, if we see, is the Turk Stream, yes. So another thing is happening, which is again increasing your dependence from Russia. So why is this difference?
I wouldn't call it dependence because see, Tupras refineries are capable of processing many different kinds of crude oil. Right now, within the last 3 years, we have processed 40 different kinds of crude oil in our refineries. And the criteria to select a certain crude oil is economic rather than technical. Okay, see, our refineries are flexible enough to process different crude oils. But what we have is, we have like LP models of our refineries. And we look at the market situation. We look at product specifications, crude oil prices. Okay, we look at product prices, and we run an optimization and demands, of course. What is demanded in Turkey? What is demanded external in other countries? Like how much of it can be sold or exported, and what additional imports that will be needed. I mean, all these things are optimized, and based on the current market conditions, we end up with a certain optimum. If the price of the Russian crude oil is right, we like to process it more.
Who are your basic suppliers?
Oh, like we're buying a lot of crude oil from Middle East, and I know we process crude oils from Nigeria, even South Africa, Colombia.
Okay.
So we're pretty flexible.
Last year on the Congress, you said that Tupras invest about $230 to $250 million just to survive.
Just to survive.
Can you please comment on this? What do you mean by this survival?
The regulations change, okay? The product specifications change. IMO, for example, one of them. Like new LPG specification, for example, okay? There is an organization called Community European Normalization. That's an organization under European Community, and this European community has working groups. As Tupras, I'm a member of these working groups, like diesel, gasoline, and LPG, for example. I don't represent Tupras, I represent Turkey, okay, in these in these working groups, so that we know what sort of specification changes are coming to different products. Now, knowing in advance what is going to change means that you come back to your country, to your company, and start working on the required investments ahead of time to meet these specifications. LPG is one of them. Just recently, on December 5, 2018, a new specification was issued by CEN, Community European Normalization, on the LPG specification. Now, what are the major changes on LPG? Sulfur level, for example, went from 50 ppm to 30 ppm. 1,3-butadienes, okay? These are the kind of stuff you don't want in your LPG, you know, all right, health hazard. So it's now we limit, the specification now limits the quantity of that, those compounds. And also, since LPG is used as an autogas in motorized vehicles instead of gasoline, it requires a certain octane number, okay? To guarantee that octane value, now CEN wants the minimum propane concentration to be a minimum 20 weight percent. Now in 2022, it's going to be 30%. Now, of course, we are now investing, kind of improving our process plants to meet this 30 ppm sulfur level, and also we're also investing on processes that will meet the propane content in LPG. If you don't make these kind of investments, you don't have any market to sell your LPG product, because you're not meeting the specification.
So this is a survival.
That's the survival right there. I mean, environmental issues, for example, okay? The government says your sulfur plant has got to recover 99.5% of your sulfur intake into the unit, and you're not allowed to exceed so many milligrams per normal meter cube of sulfur dioxide in your emissions. Okay, so that's an environmental constraint. That means you got to do something with your sulfur plants, because some of the sulfur plants are old, don't meet these specifications. So we are not investing on new sulfur plants, for example, like wastewater treatment plants, for example. Then they say, look, the government says, no, now I'm going to monitor your emissions from the refinery stacks. That means you're going to install proper online analyzers on these stacks, so I kind of follow your emissions continuously. Otherwise, these guys cancel our refining license. That's a survival rate.
And this changes from year to year.
Exactly right.
And well, the harshest of these from 2019, for example, the harshest of these changes that you were forced to implement?
2020, it's IMO right now.
IMO, okay. Yes. When I was reading about your company, I see the strategy where it is stated that company wants to increase energy efficiency, production capacity, and profitability. Yes, and lots of projects are all about this. And what is more, you want to achieve technological self-sufficiency. And as I understood, your department is the main one for these activities. Am I right or not?
That's our job.
Yes, let's talk about technologies you're currently developing and what are the main aspects you are doing.
Okay, see, we are a refining company. We don't develop refining technologies. For example, we don't invent new catalysts, for example, for any process. We don't invent new process technologies in refining. We actually use them, okay? See, we consider ourselves successful if we are able to find the right technology among right technology from the available technologies that will fit our problem best, and if we are able to implement that technology economically and efficiently and safely, we consider ourselves like lucky and successful. So these are the kind of research that we're doing. We also have a research and development program department. First of all, we are working with European nations on research projects that European nations, European nations, kind of want to concentrate on. So they invite us to be part of research programs. So we do that, and also likewise, there are certain scientific organizations in Turkey. They also want us to be part of certain research organizations, and also we use our research and development department to solve problems in refining operations that we're currently having. We have a pretty good research and development department. Like we have a pilot plant that we kind of are able to test a hydroprocessing catalyst and hydrocracking catalysts, for example. And we're also now planning on installing alternative pilot plants to be able to test plant operations. And also, like, we have a very extensive laboratory capabilities that we are able to analyze refinery streams. For example, whenever there is a new crude oil available for the market, our research and development department does the laboratory analysis to determine the characteristics of that crude oil, for example.
And let's discuss a bit your team and the way you help and encourage them to develop their knowledge. Can you give us advices on this?
See, I work with very privileged group of people. I'm very privileged, let's say, to work with these people. I mean, right now I've got about 114, 115 people working for me in technical services and research and development group. And I also have other process people working in other refineries, sort of, that we kind of work together in different projects. They are a very select group of people. What I do is I kind of encourage them to disagree with me all the time, give me a hard time, no problem. And I believe in the fact that different opinions kind of enriches the projects, let's say. So they always feel free to disagree with me, which is okay. And I try to send them to different conferences, trainings, and everything to get the network that I'm establishing in PRC conferences as much as possible. And I try to kind of encourage them to get their PhDs and everything in universities, especially research and development people. But there are also technical service process people who are also getting their PhDs. And some of them are more interested in getting MBAs rather than PhDs, which is also okay. I try to kind of encourage those kind of people too. We try to do some social things together, like breakfast. Like on Tuesday morning is our breakfast day. Each floor in my building has their own breakfast. I kind of take turns to join them in their activities. So that's, and we're not allowed to talk business during those.
No business discussions.
No business. We can talk about soccer, movies, books, and whatever, but again, no business.
Speaking about their PhDs, so what are you doing exactly to encourage?
I'm doing a PhD in chemical engineering in the University of Kocaeli in Turkey. I had other colleges that I could have gone to. But again, this college is only like 20 minutes from my office. So it's just the convenience. But it's a good college. I mean, there are really, good professors there. Actually, like there was one professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering. She is specialized in petrochemicals. And so she kind of, I don't know if she's aware of it, but she helped me a lot with the petrochemical projects in Tupras, for example. And I told her a number of times that you're just, I don't know if you know it, but you're helping me a lot. Although I'm just taking that course to fulfill my requirements, but it's way beyond that.
Difficult question, maybe. What is the secrets of success for you?
Working very hard. Taking whatever you do seriously. Be healthy is another thing. Like this, two hobbies that I try to do keep me healthy. Like stay out of smoking, for example. I don't smoke. I don't drink a lot. I try to exercise, and I've got hobbies that kind of divert my mind from job environment to other things. And I try to travel. I mean, see, like being here in the PRC conference, for example, also kind of helps me a lot on being successful, let's say. Things like that, when you all add them up together. And if you're enjoying what you do, what you're doing is also another thing that kind of helps you succeed in what you're doing. Because my theory is if you enjoy what you're doing, somehow you'll make your living out of it. No problem.
Definitely.
Okay. So that's the theory behind it. And I'm certain, you can't. I'm certainly enjoying being a chemical engineer. Being an engineer, let's say, not just chemical engineer. I enjoy being it. So that's all the ingredient, I guess. Working hard, enjoying what you do, being healthy. Everything kind of comes down to the bottom line is the success, I guess.
What are the projects you're currently working on?
Okay, right now, so technical services and research and development work together hand in hand, in a very coherent way. We looked into petrochemicals, for example. We're still looking at petrochemicals. Trying to sort of come up with alternative investments. As technical services, our job is to kind of play around with ideas, look at different project alternatives. Not every project studies that we carried are implemented. We're lucky if 1 out of 10 project studies or maybe studies come alive. We're lucky with this thing. You see what I'm saying? Like petrochemical is one of them. We looked at a lot of different petrochemical, refinery petrochemical integration projects, for example, and they haven't been, so the investment decision hasn't been made yet. We're just kind of studying these things. We developed projects for IMO, for example, impacts of the IMO. We looked at 60, 70 different configurations.
As a leader for the department,
Right.
You definitely have some of these things which you think will be the best for the company.
Sure.
And what are you doing to make the management choose these one?
Oh, well, we don't, okay. We kind of do the calculations. First of all, we know what technologies are available, okay? And we also know how these new technologies can interact with each other. And we also know how these new technologies fit into the rest of the existing refinery processes in Tupras, okay? And advantages and disadvantages. We evaluate them. We kind of build refinery models and come up with investment figures, revenue figures, sort of estimate a time of investment. Eventually, we know all these things, so we present it to them.
And are you able to influence this decision? I mean, when they are
yes,
choosing?
we do. Yes, we do. See, the thing is, like, as engineers, we like, okay, let's put it this way. Again, another analogy. What kind of car would you like to drive? Would you like to drive a Ferrari or maybe just a regular utility car? I'm not going to give you names. I like driving with Ferraris, you know. I try to convince these guys to buy a Ferrari. I try to give them all the benefits, merits of that Ferrari, for example. I mean, but again, they still buy that just the average car.
You know why I'm asking? Because
Sure.
I was interviewing Gary Goodwin in
Okay.
Budapest from KBR.
Okay.
And you already guessed that he told me that you're negotiating his ROSE technology from KBR, am I right? And
Oh, yes.
he was interested in the question. So what are you thinking about the technology and what is the process right now?
We did evaluate ROSE technology extensively. At least, okay, we looked at the, of course, we don't speak in terms of ROSE. We talk in terms of solvent deasphalting unit. That's the general name, solvent deasphalting unit. ROSE is the more a trademark name for the same technology. We also have this technology in our Izmir refinery. Of course, the ROSE unit works together with coker units, residuum hydrocracking units, residuum FCC units, for example. Okay, and the thing is, there are certain advantages of installing a ROSE unit or maybe a solvent deasphalting unit upstream of a coker unit. Kind of, it reduces the capacity of your coker unit, produces less coke, increases your hydrocracking unit, and at the end, you make more valuable product, but a little bit higher investment. So, and I will be talking about these things on my presentation on Tuesday, but let me say a few words ahead of time. And let's say Turkey, for example, is a good market for petrocoke. As long as you're able to sell petrocoke in the country, the ROSE unit doesn't justify itself economically. Now, let me give you numbers. Turkey is a net importer of petrocoke, let's say 4 million ton per year, and this number is increasing. And cement factories are using the petrocoke. And right now, Tupras is only able to make about 0.8 million ton. Now, Star Refinery is making about 0.7. So this is 1.5 million ton. We're now installing an additional coker unit that will make another 0.7 something. So we're talking like 2 million ton petrocoke per year. We're still short in the country. Then, of course, another alternative is, let's say you have a strict problem with, let's say, petrocoke in your country, all right? And then you want to install a residuum hydrocracker instead of a coker unit because you have a problem with petrocoke. So installing a ROSE unit upstream of residuum hydrocracker makes sense. That makes smaller residuum hydrocracker and maybe a slightly bigger normal hydrocracker. Well, okay, a conventional hydrocracker is what I call it. And so this ROSE unit makes a lot of sense. We have designed our coker units so that we are able to install a ROSE unit or a solvent deasphalting unit upstream of the existing coker units to lower the coke production in case we have a future problem with the petrocoke product.
Okay, but how can you predict? Are you going to license it?
How can I predict? Well, it's very difficult to predict. Depends on the government regulations. The government doesn't put any kind of restriction on petrocoke consumption of the cement factories.
For now.
For the time being. As a technical services director today, I have to kind of look at this crystal ball and try to predict what can happen in the future. We know the coke product, petrocoke, is going to be a problem, environmental problem everywhere. In that case, we're just kind of designing our systems flexible enough to insert that solvent deasphalting unit upstream. For the time being, that's not the issue. But if it becomes an issue, we'll talk to Gary, for sure. You can be sure.
Okay. All right, and let's summarize. What kind of tips you, as a director for this department, can give us to choose the technology, whether to invest in it or not?
A lot of criteria, okay? What kind of crude oils you have available for your refinery? Are they heavy crude oils or are they lighter crude oils? And another thing is, what sort of products do you need? Do you need gasoline? Do you need diesel? Do you need petrochemical feedstocks? Or do you want to kind of develop yourself on the petrochemical area, or do you want to integrate your refineries with petrochemicals? Then other technologies will become important. Of course, that's the market conditions, like crude oil available, what kind of products, and how much of these products are demanded in the country. Okay, and if you have an excess, where would you export it to? So those are the kind of questions that you will have to answer. For example, one conference in Moscow, there were two gentlemen from Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan, and these guys were talking about petrochemical investments in their presentations, and they were making polypropylene and polyethylene in their petrochemical and refinery investments, and the market was Turkey. And polyethylene and polypropylene are highly demanded in Turkey, by the way. So that's why we're looking at petrochemicals, but we're looking at the olefins rather than aromatics. Of course, another thing is how much money you have. How much money are you willing to spend on your petrochemical and refinery? Your finance availability. So that's another thing. Okay. So like infrastructure is another. How would you distribute the product that you produce, for example? So a lot of things kind of play an important role. In Turkey, we look at like diesel demands, for example, and problems with fuel oil. And for example, we still have to make bitumen, for example, because Tupras is the only bitumen supplier in the country. Otherwise, we would have no roads, basically. So that's a sort of a criteria for Turkey, you know. So it's a complicated game we play.
Let's talk a bit about energy efficiency. I know that your company recently get an award, yes, for this achievement. Could you please give us more details?
Let me give you numbers again. Natural gas is very expensive in Turkey. Okay, for example, you see, the natural gas value is like $1 per million BTUs. Okay, that's how the natural gas sector kind of measures the cost of a natural gas value. You know, so United States is $2, $2.50 today. Europe is on the order of like $4.50. Even the prices are going down. In Turkey, it's about like $6 to $8. So natural gas energy is very expensive in Turkey. All right. So every time we save energy in our refining operations, that means we're making money. Now, for example, electrical power production. Gas turbines is the highest technology to make electrical power, so we're now installing more gas turbines. We used to have like steam turbines to make electrical power, but now we're shifting toward the gas turbines. And like the pressure also comes environmentally. For example, in steam turbines, you burn fuel oil, produce steam, pass it through a steam turbine, make electrical power. But now, okay, fuel oil has tax in it in Turkey, and it's more expensive, and environmentally, it's difficult to burn fuel oil. It's got high sulfur in it. So now what we're doing is now we're using the highest technology, better technology, to burn natural gas, make electrical power, and less environmental issues. And also, we try to do a lot of energy heat recovery projects in our existing process units. What we call it is energy intensity index, EII. We're trying to lower that value as below 100. Now, we used to be like in government Tupras ages, let's say, the number would be, the overall number would be on the order of like 120, 130s. Now we are below 90 right now. And of course, based on the current energy values costs, reducing this EII value, energy intensity index value, just by 1 point means so many $1 million per year. So we're looking at these kind of energy recovery and energy efficiency projects in process units, and try to find alternative ways to produce energy, like electrical power and steam. And we're also looking at wind power. We're installing wind turbines. We have a project in Izmir Refinery, for example. And we're looking at solar power. For example, Batman Refinery. Now we are also evaluating the carbon dioxide emissions in our investment. To lower carbon dioxide emissions, that will be beneficial, because now every ton of additional carbon dioxide means, let's say, so many dollars per ton. So we're also evaluating carbon dioxide, and that means energy intensity right there. So we're looking at a lot of different things to consume less energy, let's say, or at least produce it more efficiently.
Sustainable projects. Let's finalize what you have on your table.
Again, see, we have a lot of different kinds of projects to maintain sustainability. People call it sustainability, I call it survival. Staying in business. And you have to kind of see what's coming ahead in many years, and kind of decide on what sort of investments you need to be able to maintain your operations. So every kind of investments that we're developing today sort of kind of focuses on sustainability.
And let's finalize our discussion about your projects by your coker unit, which is all about IMO. Yes?
Yes.
Can you tell us more?
The idea of that coker unit, okay, that was selected among a menu of projects, alternatives. We're installing a new coker unit, and maybe in addition to that, we're planning on installing a new naphtha hydrotreater, and integrate that unit, two units, with the existing units in the refinery, hydrocracker and hydrogen units. And also we're installing a new sulfur unit together with it to meet the environmental regulations, of course. We're also integrating these two units together with the existing refinery units, so that everything works okay. So I mean, that project is still going on. We've completed the basic engineering. Now we're kind of going into detailed engineering and so on and so forth.
So when are you going to finish it?
That's a very difficult question. Hopefully before 2025.
What is the most important thing you're proud of about this project?
I think we came up with a very unique solution that will maximize the utilization of the existing refinery facilities or Tupras facilities, and create a very efficient integration, let's say. We did this thing with our own team, with our own engineers. Most of the work was done with my own team, and I think their contribution was just kind of immense. That's probably the most important thing that we could be proud of, is solving the problem with our own engineering background, let's say, is very important.
Also, I've read about Horizon 2020.
Okay.
And also you participated there, and very actively and very successfully.
Well, we have a number of Horizon 2020 projects in our research and development group. Our research and development group is growing a lot, and we have right now 60, 65 people working in that group. 15 of them is lab technicians, and the rest is basically research people. We have like 20, 25 PhD people working in our research and development group. Some of them are doing their PhD. Some of them have already received their PhD degrees. I am doing a PhD, for example. So as the director of the group, so they don't have the right to complain. You know what I mean. We have a very competent research group doing these kind of things, and we apply for Horizon 2020 projects, a lot of European Community projects, and as they get to know Tupras, they tend to give more projects, or they tend to accept Tupras as partners to bigger projects. So we're proud of it.
And what benefit it can come up later out of these Horizon projects?
Research project, I mean, you learn things from research projects. You develop technologies, or you become a part of developing new technologies. For example, I mean, we're looking at the carbon dioxide capture and conversion projects together with the European people. If you come up with a way to sort of eliminate carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, or at least stop emission of carbon dioxide, yet still be able to burn hydrocarbons, for example, I mean, wouldn't that be fantastic? See,
Definitely.
Of course, right now this technology is not as developed as I would like to see. Let's say, I guess that's the way I want to put it. But again, people are working on it, and it's a very critical, like this global warming business, and carbon dioxide has a very important influence on that global warming problem, let's say, and my team is working together with the European counterparts to come up with ideas, within this Horizon 2020 projects or other European research projects.
Since our business is event organization, it's interesting for me to know your opinions. So how often do you take part in industry events like ours?
Right now, PRC is the only organization that I'm participating in.
A pleasure for me.
Okay. See, I get a lot of invitations. Unfortunately, my time doesn't allow me to do anything more than I can do for you guys. What I can do today for you is probably 5 to 10% of what is coming to me, let's say. And so I kind of limit myself to you guys. But keep that in mind, the presentations the topics that we kind of agree on are kind of tailor-made for your organizations. They are not just kind of some presentations that I pull out from a shelf and kind of make. No, they are just kind of specifically presented to your organization. Takes time.
How do you evaluate networking?
I could be forming a lot of networking just without speaking people, without taking a stage during the conference. But now, of course, being part of these conferences, you get to meet a lot of people. See, what happens is every time after the conference, people start writing me. And of course, we introduce new chemical vendors from Russia to our vendor list, for example. We met new contractors, for example, who are doing business in Russia, and they could be contractors for us, for example. Okay, so that way we get to meet a lot of people, and of course, I remember meeting one company who has interest in environmental solutions. So I kind of introduced those people to my colleagues in Tupras. And for example, there was one company who wanted to help out, help Tupras with more economical investment, maintenance activities. Although it's not my area of interest or responsibility in Tupras, but I introduced these guys to the respective people in Tupras. I don't know how it's going, but again, that was a opportunity for everybody. At least for Tupras, we get to know alternative contractors for a certain topic, and they get to meet Tupras. So it's a total win-win situation, and I certainly enjoy being part of it.
And if a mid-sized company approach you at the Congress, what should they tell you in order to get and catch your interest to continue further negotiations?
I guess the easiest way is to talk to you. So you come and get me. I'll talk to anyone. No problem. I don't care about the size. Sometimes small companies come up with such an innovative ideas that you'll be surprised. So we don't have a mindset. I mean, we don't talk to big companies. No, that's not true. Sometimes I enjoy talking to small companies, and like I said, I mean, you would be surprised how imaginative these people could be, and you would be surprised what kind of solutions they can offer to you. So we don't have the mindset like I'll talk to anyone. Just tell them that I'm available.
So Blitz part is another traditional thing we are doing during this interview. Just give me the first answer which is in your head, okay? Have you ever won a lottery?
No.
Okay.
Never played it.
Never played it.
I don't believe in lotteries.
Okay. What are the main challenges for next oil and gas generation?
Environmental issues will become an important issue.
Definitely. What product would you stockpile if you found out that they weren't going to sell it anymore?
I like books, technical books, you know. I still keep my books a lot. Never throw a book, I mean, that I own so far, especially in engineering. I always use them. So I guess I will say books, and my wife is always complaining about the books in my bookshelves in my study at home. So, and she keeps telling me I need to get rid of those.
Is there anything you're really bad at?
I wouldn't want to sing, for example. Like, I enjoy music, but you wouldn't want me to sing. You know, let's put it that way. I'm really bad at it.
Okay. What are 3 most important rules for you to follow in your job?
Do the job based on numbers, facts, information, not just guesses. You know, I don't feel like this is right. No, it's got to be based on numbers. First of all, we have to be open-minded, I guess. You know, like to understand. Like, we make sure that we look at all aspects of a certain problem. Make sure we're looking at the problem in a broader aspects, because our job is to be able to look at everything. What I call it is we're playing chess with hydrocarbons. I don't know if it kind of describes what I'm. See, you Russians play chess very well, okay? You're very good chess players. That's a good analogy. So we're playing chess with hydrocarbons. Make sure we're playing right, you know? So be open-minded, okay? That's another thing. Teamwork is another thing. Like, we would like everybody to collaborate in the game. I mean, talk about different ideas. Disagreement is a fantastic thing for a manager, okay? See, I'm not a kind of person that kind of wants people to follow my ideas. No. I don't want my ideas to be followed. I want everybody's idea kind of mixed together in the pot and come up with a richer flavor. If I can contribute to that taste a little bit with my own fine. But again, I would like a teamwork.